Hey guys! If you follow my Twitter, you may know that I have been caught in a few purity spirals these last few months. And what I mean by this is that I keep getting rejected by groups, although to be fair, groups I have never outright identified with, based on my lack of full conformity to their viewpoints. If you're in the Twitter or YouTube community, I'm sure this has happened to you as well. You're not enough of a race realist for the alt-right, you're too much of a race realist for the skeptic community, you're pro-choice and rejected by conservatives, you get my drift. Few people completely identify with any given ideology. There is a temptation for movements and groups to define their boundaries through staunch tests of ideological purity. While group homogeneity to some degree is good, that is how we congregate around shared philosophies and form like-minded groups in the first place. In excess, it is cult-like and encourages groups to develop and stay within an echo chamber. It also deters more centrist folks from finding your ideas interesting and wanting to learn more. I have seen this a lot in the alt-right lately. You may remember that I did an alt-right AMA a few months back. I had seen that a bunch of non-alt-right people had done it before and it wasn't on camera, so I wasn't too nervous about it. But it was a huge disaster because every other question was demanding that I address the JQ. And it just dominated the thread. There was nothing I could do to stop it. And I really, really regretted doing it. I wish I hadn't done it. And of course, it gave ammunition to the skeptic community. Skeptics have come after me a few times for some tweets and for the AMA that I did in the alt-right. And I have seen them do the same thing to Lauren Southern and that guy T, Chris Raygun, a bunch of other people. And it always seems to be about racism. They threaten to do exposés, and they will dig through your entire Twitter history to find something seemingly racist. If you're on Twitter, you have probably already noticed this, or will now. But why is this? And I asked one of them, and he said that it is important to make sure that the general public knows that their specific brand of anti-Islam liberalism is not associated with racism. So he literally admitted to me that this was a giant virtue signal and basically a purity test conducted in a social environment for maximum effect. And Sargon coincidentally made a video about this yesterday on his second channel, and I've linked that below. He really dissects some of the leftist skeptics in all of our interactions. And we've also seen similar behavior recently from straight-edge conservatives regarding this Tomi Lahren issue. And I'm sure you have all heard about this by now, so I'll be brief, but Tomi said on The View that she believes in states' rights and constitutional values, so she is pro-choice, but she had formerly referred to abortion as murder, and she's exhibited some hypocrisy in what she said. But also, she's 24, and maybe she just changed her mind. Or perhaps she's reluctantly pro-choice for practical reasons, like a lot of people. I don't really care. But she was crucified by the right, and the left for that matter, for this interview on The View. She was even kicked off the Blaze. But of course, we don't just see this on the right. This is in all groups, and we see this on the left as well. And my favorite example is a large group of pro-life women that were banned from attending the Women's March.
So when we were actually added as a partner, being a pro-life feminist group, we're not used to getting included in a lot of circles, but it was incredibly hopeful that this march was doing exactly what it claimed.
These women all of a sudden said, you and your other female friends in your organization are not allowed to march with us.
Right. Once it came out in an Atlantic article that was actually praising them for being inclusive and adding us, within, I believe it was something like 2 hours, there was a huge Twitter storm of people demanding that we be removed. And unfortunately, the march did cave to that pressure.
And of course, there's the now notorious instance of Black Lives Matter shutting down a gay rights parade in Canada.
A protest by the Black Lives Matter group brought the march to a halt for at least 30 minutes. The organization was given the status of honored group for the event, which is the grand finale of the Pride Month. Now, Alexandria Williams is a co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement in Toronto, and she joins us now. I have to ask the question that everyone in Toronto is asking: why did Black Lives Matter halt the Pride Parade?
The reality is we halted the Pride Parade today because Pride Toronto as an organization has been constantly pushing Black folk in terms of their programming, other marginalized communities, in terms of the programming in a very far place away in order for us to celebrate our Pride. So today we held Pride accountable for their anti-Blackness, for their anti-indigeneity, for the fact that we have been pushed to the margins way too long.
On the other hand, you can't just let anyone into your movement. I've heard horror stories of nationalist meetups that get some real wackadoos, and there simply has to be a process for vetting, especially in smaller movements and groups that are meeting up in person and could easily be infiltrated by reporters or enemies of sorts. So what better method than by evaluating whether or not someone observes your ideologies? So how do groups find the proper balance between capitalizing on the power of shared ideas while not falling into the traps of demanding perfect ideological conformity? Perhaps the answer to this is that we should just largely avoid labeling ourselves. When I started this channel, I tried not to outright adopt any labels because I just wanted to call bullshit where I see it. But over my time on YouTube, I eventually identified as a few different things, all of which became largely problematic and ended up being mistakes. And I've seen groups on YouTube and in politics get completely hijacked and distorted into something unrecognizable, infiltrated, changed from within. Most affiliations are risky, and if your philosophies are still being formed, like mine were over the course of the last year, it may hinder your ideological progression. Then again, it could bolster and develop your philosophies, so I think I'm still a bit conflicted about this. What do you think? Should groups like conservatives, anti-feminists, MRA skeptics, the alt-right, have stringent expectations of what being each requires and hold its members to those standards? Or should we all seek to reach a wider audience? Or should each group be treated differently? The external hostility and burning curiosity focused on the alt-right by the press and other people may force them to act with more scrutiny towards other members' ideologies, which would be a fear largely absent from the skeptic community, for example, which is much larger, it's a more overarching term, and I don't think they're really having conventions or meetups in the way the alt-right is. In the same thread, when you think of intellectual giants that you admire, do they adhere staunchly to a set of principles that they can define with a mere label? Or is their worldview more nebulous and difficult to hammer down? Ann Coulter is a good example. She's a hardline conservative, but she's also a career woman and is more masculine and dominant. She's not exactly the picture of Christian conservative traditionalism. Stefan Molyneux has developed his school of thought over the years and has never really been identified with a movement. He's been many things. But then there are smart and influential people like Ben Shapiro who are seemingly more ideologically consistent in terms of the movement they represent. Really interested in your thoughts on this one, so let me know below. Thanks, and I'll see you soon. Bye.